For over 100 years, one Italian family has sat at the very center of industry, politics, media, and power. Their name rarely makes global headlines, but their influence has quietly shaped Italy's economy through monarchies, fascism, republics, world wars, and globalization. This isn't a story about kings or presidents. This is a story of the Agnelli family, a dynasty that ruled Italy not from palaces or parliaments, but from boardrooms, factories, and balance sheets. Our story begins in 1899, when a man named Giovanni Agnelli helped found a company called Fiat Fabbrica Italiana Automobili Torino. At the time, Italy was a young, fragmented nation, lagging far behind the industrial giants of Britain, Germany, and France. Cars were a luxury for the rich, but Giovanni saw something much bigger. He understood that industrial production, not land or titles, would be the currency of modern power. Fiat wasn't just a car company. It was a project to build Italy's industrial strength from the ground up. As Italy began to modernize, Fiat grew right alongside it, becoming a symbol of a new industrial Italy. By the early 20th century, Fiat wasn't just making cars anymore. It was building trucks, trains, ship engines, aircraft, and military equipment. This incredible diversification put the Agnelli family in a uniquely powerful position. They were essential to the Italian state, no matter who was in charge. So, when Benito Mussolini and his fascist party rose to power in the 1920s, Fiat became a core supplier to the regime. The company produced the vehicles, aircraft engines, and industrial machinery that fueled Italy's war machine. Like many industrial dynasties of that era, the Agnellis adapted to the political reality of the time. This wasn't necessarily about ideology. It was about survival. Their strategy was simple and effective. Stay useful to whoever holds power. World War II left Italy in ruins. Fiat factories were bombed. Mussolini's regime collapsed, and the country switched sides in the war. It was a moment of total chaos. But once again, the family adapted. In the post-war era, Italy found itself on the front lines of the Cold War as a key member of NATO, and Fiat transformed itself. It went from being a wartime producer to becoming the engine of Italy's famous economic miracle. During the 1950s and 60s, millions of Italians left their rural villages for industrial cities, and many of them found jobs in Fiat plants. The Agnellis were no longer just industrialists. They were shaping the very fabric of modern Italian society. At the heart of this new era stood Giovanni Agnelli, a man so influential he was often called Italy's uncrowned king. He was charismatic, stylish, and connected to powerful people all over the world. Giovanni became the face of Italian capitalism. Under his leadership, Fiat didn't just stay in Italy, it went global. The company acquired or took control of legendary brands that would eventually include Ferrari, Maserati, Alfa Romeo, and Lancia. Decades later, this expansion would lead to transatlantic mergers that brought Chrysler and Jeep into the fold. The Agnellis were no longer just an Italian family, they were global industrial power brokers. But Giovanni knew that industrial power alone wasn't enough to secure the family's influence, so they invested heavily in media and culture. The Agnellis gained control of La Stampa, one of Italy's largest and most respected newspapers. This gave them a powerful voice in shaping public opinion. Owning a major newspaper provided something that factories and car sales never could: narrative control. It allowed the family to influence how the public understood everything from economic reforms and labor strikes to political scandals. This soft power proved to be just as important as their industrial might. The family's influence also spread into the world of sports. They took control of Juventus Football Club, one of the most successful and beloved teams in all of Europe. For the Agnellis, Juventus was more than just a sports team. It was a cultural symbol, a powerful branding tool, and a source of national pride. Through the shared passion of football, the family connected with ordinary Italians on an emotional level that few industrialists ever could. Their model of power wasn't just about economics, it was about capturing hearts and minds. Despite their immense power, the Agnellis were not untouchable. The late 20th century was a difficult time for Italy. The country was rocked by political violence, widespread corruption scandals, and economic stagnation. The infamous Mani Pulite, or clean hands, investigations exposed a web of corruption that shook the foundations of Italian business and politics. Fiat struggled, debts piled up, and many critics began to wonder if the dynasty's long reign was finally coming to an end. But, as they had done so many times before, the family adapted. The modern Agnelli strategy shifted away from old-school industrial nationalism towards sophisticated global finance. They consolidated their vast holdings under a new investment company called Exor through Exor. The Agnellis now manage a massive portfolio that spans automobiles, media, healthcare, luxury goods, and technology. With assets worth hundreds of billions of dollars, Exor is now one of the most powerful investment groups in Europe. Their control has become quieter, more financial, and less visible to the public eye, but it is no less effective. What makes the Agnelli story so incredible isn't a secret plot or a grand conspiracy, it's their remarkable continuity. For more than 120 years, this family has mastered one essential skill: alignment. They have consistently aligned themselves with industrial needs, political realities, and global economic trends, without ever tying their fate to a single ideology or government. Monarchies fell, fascism collapsed, dozens of governments have come and gone, but the Agnellis have remained. Their story reveals a fundamental truth about how power works. Large industrial families often thrive not because they control governments directly, but because governments depend on the jobs, production, and stability they provide. The Agnellis understood this simple fact earlier and better than almost anyone else. By embedding themselves into the very core of Italy's industrial and economic life, they made themselves indispensable. Influence simply followed. Today, Italy is no longer the industrial powerhouse it was in the 20th century. But the Agnelli legacy is still woven deep into the country's economy. From the cars on the road and the newspapers on the stands to the football teams on the pitch and the financial markets. The family's footprint is everywhere. It's often unnoticed and rarely questioned. Their power isn't loud or flashy. It doesn't announce itself with trumpets. It operates quietly, through institutions, ownership, and the patient passage of time. The story of the Agnellis tells us something profound about modern capitalism. Enduring power does not belong to those who rule for a moment, but to those who adapt continuously. Empires fall, governments change, markets evolve, but families that understand the deep connections between production, narrative, and patience can shape nations for generations quietly, persistently, and with remarkable effect. Thanks for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as I did, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more deep dives into the forces that shape our world. See you in the next one.